not the private club place. I've been there once. Tune in Tuesday.
Okay, good afternoon. This is the work session on Tuesday, July 23rd. The commissioners up first, staff community presentations, and we have the ARPA spending update. Ashley, you're back.
Hi there.
Nice to see you.
Ashley Pearl, Resiliency and Housing Director. And I am here for what I really, really hope will be our final conversation about assigning the county's ARPA funds.
Thank God.
I mean, fingers crossed. So, our purpose here today is to, I'll go very quickly since you just recently saw it, all of our current ARPA commitments and where our money's gone. I'll go through that. And then we'll talk about options for committing the remaining funds. And then I'll ask the board where you would like to commit those funds. And then ideally the rest of the year we spend celebrating. But so as a reminder, ARPA stands for the American Rescue Plan Act. We had $4.3 million starting in 2022. And our commitments to date total $3.7 million, which means we have a remaining $570,000 left to commit. Here is where we've spent it to date. So the first program we ever did was the Child Care Stipend Program, where we give $6,000 a year to every staff member working for a child care center in Pickens County. The other child care program that we did was a child care maintenance and equipment grants, where we had 10 out of 11 of the centers located in Pickens County participate. And I was able to just see the playground on the right the other day. It's where my son is spending the summer, and it's gorgeous. Yeah. We also supported the construction of the Stotts Mill Child Care Center in Basalt. That's going to add 48 new child care spots, infant, toddler, and preschool. And in exchange for our general fund money, which is not shown up there, we did get priority spots for children of our employees. But for our ARPA money, we just supported the construction of new child care spots for the community. The board has more recently toured this, so you probably have more recent photos in your mind from when you toured it last month. We also gave $500,000 to the Halley Center for Hope and Healing, which is being constructed by Response. They are still on track to open in January, and I heard that they just completed their capital campaign and received all the money that they needed for it, which was around $9.6 million. We originally gave $250,000, and then they came back and asked us for an additional $250,000, and we were close to the last in money for that. So looking forward to that coming online as well. We've committed $361,000 for case management through our contractor at Health and Human Services Building, Recovery Resources. That funds 2 case managers that support our clients at the Schultz Human Services Building. It's allowed us to bring on 12 new clients into case management who weren't previously accessing case management. We had 2 new enrollments in our service programs. And then the case manager has had a daily presence at a lot of locations, just kind of creating connections, even if they're not formally enrolling anyone in case management. It seems like it's been a really good touch point, just kind of get a better sense of that population and their needs. So that was for 2023 as well as 2024. And then the Regional Financial Empowerment Center is moving, however slowly, but I do believe it'll be up and running in 2025. So that's free professional financial counseling for anyone in Picken, Eagle, and Garfield counties. And that kind of relies on this concept that at the root of many community challenges, so if you're having trouble with housing or childcare or healthcare or mental health, financial literacy can be a really good stepping point to try and address some of those other challenges that might be going on. So really just kind of basic financial knowledge, much of which we all wish we had in high school or college, but didn't get until we really needed it. And so I think this will really empower a large portion of our community to then be able to access some of those other critical items for quality of life. And then your most recent assignment of ARPA funds was to the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition Good Deeds Program. You committed the remaining $719,000 of your LATCF ARPA funding, which was the more flexible type of ARPA funding. And then we committed a little bit of general fund money for a total of $1 million towards this program. Right now, the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition is hosting info sessions for interested applicants. I heard that just this week they had 2 info sessions and they had over 20 people across the 2. So their goal is to add 30 new deed-restricted homes to the regional inventory without building any new housing. And they're well on their way to launching the program in August, thanks mostly to Picken County's contribution. So that's where we've given all of our money for a total of $3.7 million. That leaves us with $570,000 left. And just as a reminder, when I go out and I try and vet and bring forward ideas back to you, I always make sure that it's a way that we can spend the money. So the feds say we can spend the money. Make sure it's impacting a community challenge or a need that the board has identified, that it aligns and doesn't duplicate what other partners and other organizations are doing, that it's an appropriate use of one-time funds and doesn't set us up to start something that then can't exist on its own, and that it has a low administrative burden because this is only part of the job that I do for Picken County. So we can't have too much administrative work associated with anything. So with that, I'm bringing forward 3 options for committing funding today. 2 of them you've heard about before and 1 is new. So one is the Stotts Mill Child Care Center. The other is extending the staff stipend program, and this is at the direction of the board when we met last in May. And then the third is a potential contribution to the Little Red Schoolhouse. So I'm going to walk through each of these and then we can discuss. We will discuss. So Stotts Mill Child Care Center, their total project cost is $1.3 million. They have a funding gap of $201,000 and 140, that number, 201,143 funding gap. We've helped them before by being a matching contributor to their DOLA grant through the $250,000. They were able to get a core grant for their heat pump, which makes the building even more efficient than they had originally planned. And they've come back to us and asked, as of this spring, if Picken County would be willing to contribute more funds towards it. We did ask them last time, if you remember, if we gave them more funds, would we get anything in return? Town of Basalt staff did confirm that if we contribute more money, we can either get more priority spots for our employees, so we have 11 right now, or we could extend the term of that priority from 5 years up to 10 years. Based on the interest I'm seeing right now, I wouldn't recommend going for 22 priority spots. We don't have a need for that, but expanding our term up to 10 years, I think would be really great. So Michelle Thibault from Town of Basalt, I believe, is on today. Rosa, I don't know if she's, if we have questions about this when we get further down the road. But that's the update on that one, is Town of Basalt is still looking for partnership.
Let me ask something before you get off of that.
Yeah.
So to date, we've given $250,000 to Stotts Mill. Is that what you said? And
Correct.
then how much was the total cost of our stipends for teachers in childcare? It was like
1.6 million.
okay. And then we gave the grant for improving centers physically.
250,000. Are you calculating how much total we've spent on
I
childcare?
am.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Tell me
Tell
that
you in a
number.
second.
Yeah. So this is one possibility for spending our remaining ARPA funds and what we would get from it. Another option, and the board discussed this last time, so I put together some numbers around it at your request. We could extend the staff stipend for childcare professionals. Our current budget is 1.575. That allows us to give $6,000 a year for every full-time teacher in 2023 and in 2024. But that number cuts in half in 2025. We can use ARPA money all the way through end of 2026, as long as we commit it by the end of this year. So Aspen Community Foundation, who is the administrator of the program for us, put together these options. So the little yellow box is if we wanted to give the full stipend amount, so that's $6,000 a year in both 2025 and in 2026. We would need an additional $569,000 to provide that. If we wanted to do step-down stipends, which is the green box, so that
You
would,
said- So the current budget already has like 500,000 in it,
the current
still
budget,
in it. So we need an additional 569,000 to do 25, 26 at the full stipend.
correct.
Okay,
Because the current budget gets us through full stipends in 2023, 2024, and half stipends in 2025,
And-
plus some leftover.
okay, thank you.
Because our original calculations, it's
Okay.
down from that. If we wanted to do what Aspen Community Foundation is calling step-down stipends, so that would be in 2025, we give 75%, and in 2026, we give 50%. We'd need an additional $160,000 of ARPA funding. And if you wanted to stick with a half stipend in 2025, but then extend the half stipend into 2026, we'd need around $25,000 extra,
Okay, that's really clear, thank you.
In addition to the ARPA funding.
in addition to what we have already committed.
No, from the ARPA fund.
From the ARPA
From
fund.
the ARPA fund, got it.
From the
Okay,
ARPA fund, in
thank you.
addition to the money we've already committed. So I'll say my staff recommendation on this one is to consider either the step-down stipends or the half stipends. Full stipends, remember how I kind of went through what we look at when I recommend ARPA programming to you all? I would worry that if we went with full stipends, that would be 4 years of childcare professionals receiving $6,000 a year. To me, 4 years doesn't feel like a stipend amount. At a certain point, I worry that that $6,000 has got incorporated into somebody's kind of calculations for ongoing salary. And I worry that if we went with full stipends for 4 full years and then nothing, it would create that cliff effect that we're trying to avoid. I think it's important that we maintain the messaging that this is a stipend, this is not an ongoing program, this will go away. And I just worry that if we were giving $6,000, $6,000, no matter how much we message, it really becomes something that somebody really relies on, as opposed to an extra to get them through hard times.
I
So,
appreciate your perspective on that. And no offense to you, but I think it's a little bit insulting to the people, like, you know, to say we should give them less money so they can get used to being poor is a little bit weird, you know?
You didn't really say that.
What?
You're assuming that. That's
Well,
not
that's what
something
it
she said.
sounds like.
Well,
That we depended upon it and now we're gonna drop it. Well, they've depended upon something, we're gonna drop it anyway, so.
I don't think that's justification for not propping them up for 4 years. I totally get what you're saying. I see it. But I don't think it's our obligation to inure them to the fact that in 2027, you're not gonna get this 6,000. I think they're smart enough to figure that out, but.
yeah, and that's fully up to the board's decision. I think one other thing I did want to share about this is when we originally created it, the goal of the program was to help with inflation and rising costs in contrast to the typically very low salaries that these folks get. So I think those salaries unfortunately have continued. I don't think they've dramatically increased. I do think costs continue to increase, but not at the steep incline that we saw in 2022 when we put this program into place. But I do pass that along from Aspen Community Foundation as well, as they're the ones that do the monthly reporting and the quarterly reports on how they're seeing teachers use this and the impact it's having. As a context for this, the City of Aspen Kids First offers a similar program to programs located in the City of Aspen. And what they've required is that providers, theirs is a ratcheted down program, they've required that providers make up the difference as the city ratchets down their contribution. So their intention was always to give money and then to keep teacher salaries at that amount forever, because they're expecting providers to
without
fill
paying
that
for it.
gap.
So that could be like $60,000 a year
Yeah,
for a
and
child care
It's like
providing
an unfunded
business.
mandate.
Right, and
I
I've
don't see
heard from
that.
the providers in there that they don't see a way to do that. So I do know, like, our providers in the county, there's 11 of them. I don't expect that they will be able to fill that gap
Right.
when our stipend does eventually run out, regardless of what year it's in.
They raise the rate of childcare, which is already unaffordable to so many.
Well, it's definitely been one of our priorities for the last few years, so I'd be curious to know what else you're suggesting to do with that $500,000, so.
Yeah. So,
I like the stipend program, but
yeah, and that's why I brought these forward to you. And Francie, I didn't mean to insult. I appreciate that
Oh,
feedback.
I know
just,
you didn't mean to.
Yeah, I wanted to.
I understand.
no, but it.
To
yeah,
just give some context, I want to make sure if we do choose the full stipends, we have to really, really message, because I just don't want, we've talked a lot about that cliff effect and trying to avoid it. And I would just want to be careful that we at least have some clear communication.
But 4 years of $6,000 is $24,000. It's not very much money. Well, hopefully,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the lion's share of their income.
So you all have heard about, obviously, the Stotts Mill program and the stipend program before. One other opportunity I wanted to bring in front of you comes from Town of Snowmass Village, and Greg is here from the town if you have questions.
Come on up. Come have a seat, may as well.
Come on up, Greg. For a couple years now, the town has been relooking at the expansion of the Little Red Schoolhouse. Greg and I have been chatting over the last couple of months, and it seems that the program is going to move forward in 2025 with an expansion. Greg lets me know that it's around $8 million for them, and they're looking at putting that in their 2025 budget. It will provide space for over 60 children across 4 classrooms, and I think is a much needed upgrade in that area. So from Greg to me, there's been a request from the town for a partnership from Picken County. Greg tossed out the number of around $2 million being a meaningful amount for this project for the town. We debated and went back and forth on whether we wanted to present this today, because obviously there is not enough ARPA money to cover this. But I do want to let you know from my analysis, this is ARPA eligible. It does align with how the county has been using our ARPA money to date to support childcare. And so I didn't want to not share it with you because it's a large number. And so what I've said in kind of a recommended funding opportunity is you could fund both the opportunities you've heard about before, which is Stotts Mill and the stipend program. And you could do it in such a way that you have around $200,000 remaining. And then you could ask Greg and team from Snowmass to come back, give a larger presentation if you're curious to hear more about Little Red, hear about the project, and then kind of contemplate at that time what Picken County's partnership could be or might be, knowing that you would still reserve a little bit of ARPA funding, but also knowing that the partnership that's being requested is a much higher amount than what we can fund with ARPA. So if you wanted to be a higher amount partner in that, we'd need to look elsewhere for funding. So that's, I know it's a little wonky how this comes about, but I didn't want to leave out an ARPA eligible project just because we're at the end of ARPA and the amount is larger than what we have. But Greg, what did I miss?
I think you accurately captured it all.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to Patty for a question, then
I
Kelly.
have a question. So Snowmass does not, they provide housing for people who work in Snowmass.
Correct.
So how many Picken County people who work outside of Snowmass are going to be able to take advantage of, or do take advantage of the Little Red Schoolhouse?
That's an excellent question. Thank you. In 2021, we started this process of looking at what expansion would be for the child care center. And that feasibility study was countywide, so we call it system-wide, thinking that folks may live in Glenwood or further and be employed up valley, so Aspen or Snowmass. We know from that feasibility study that that workforce chooses their childcare based on availability, and so if there's availability somewhere close to work, they will typically prefer that. And so we know that piece. And then the other piece is the workforce that's currently housed within Snowmass Village. We have about 500 rentals and I forget, about 250 deed restricted units, something around there. And some of those folks who are in there work for the town, some work for Aspen Skiing Company, some work for the county. It's a mix. The priority of how you get that housing depends on, or informs when you're eligible. Obviously, we prioritize people who actually work in Snowmass Village before others, but we know that the number 2 employer that employs people in our housing is not the town. It's ski company and then the county. So kind of long walk for a short drink of water. Anyone would be eligible to have their kid if there's availability at the expanded child care center. And so ideally, somebody who works in town and lives in town would be able to get their kid in that spot. But we know that that's not the idealistic world that we live in. There are people who would be traveling and would take advantage of a child care spot that's closer to where they work.
Right, but I'm concerned, so I live in Basalt. I work for the ski company in Aspen. I want to take my child here. I'd have to drive. Because you can't, to take a bus with a kid to childcare, there's no direct link for the, you'd have to, it would not be an easy drop off or pickup. So that's of concern. I used to live in Snowmass and I had 2 children. Well, I had 1 when I was there. And, but I worked in town. So I would bring my son into town because this Little Red Schoolhouse was very small then. There weren't any spots. But so that would concern me for really being an attractive thing for Pickens County workers. And I didn't realize that Snowmass, John helped me with this, that Snowmass housing was priority for Snowmass, and then if you're worked outside of Snowmass, you could get in, because it used to be you had to work in Snowmass.
Yeah, so I think that system has actually been in place for some time now.
Where there's a priority ranking.
Yeah, but
It's good to hear.
it is, I mean, it's unlikely that you're going to get in if you're not in Snowmass and into the housing. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I can speak to that a little further. We have about 250-ish people on our wait list for rental housing, and how the priority system works, that wait is about 7 years, and so you're waiting a while to get into housing.
Yeah.
What kind of waiting list for childcare?
There, I don't have that exact number, but I am aware of some folks who work or reside in town who are on that wait list.
Greg, I see that Kelly and Steve have their hands
Right.
up. Before we go there, I did want to just frame it up. We only have 45 minutes today, and I didn't want to surprise the board with an impromptu presentation from Greg. I think he's here to answer high-level questions to see if you all want to invite him back and he can talk about the history of the project, the need for the project, where it's going to go, and kind of consider that partnership at a larger level. Just because,
Great.
you know,
Yeah.
you
In
didn't
the
bring your
interest of
slides,
time.
and we only have 15 minutes, so that's the
Well,
framing.
thank you for that. And so I want to go to Kelly and then Steve.
Thank you. Ashley, can you go back to your prior slide? No, maybe not. The one that says the rest can be charged towards COVID expenses. Okay, this sort of sparked a thought for me, that I'm wondering if we should consider some of the remaining funds as COVID expenses. And one of the projects that I'm wondering if we should explore is in public health. You know, I'd be curious from public health's point of view if they see opportunities to use this. And like one thing that came to mind for me is, for example, like a vaccine campaign to try and get people caught up on childhood vaccines, which have declined due to the pandemic. I wonder if we booked the money towards COVID expenses, if it would give us opportunities to do something like that.
I think that you can only book a certain percentage of the overall ARPA funding as it's essentially COVID reimbursements. That would, if you wanted to put any amount towards that today, you could, and then you can use it however you want in the future. It doesn't have, at that point, it's the feds no longer care about it because we've already reported on it, and then it's money you can use however you want. So you could free it up, Kelly, in that way for future conversations with Little Red, future conversations with public health, or whatever else the board brings up. We cannot book the full $570,000 as COVID expenses, so we do have to commit around 2/3 of that today, and then you could book the rest as COVID and have some flexibility with it.
Okay, I'm going to go to Steve.
So looking at these three proposals, two of them are for expanding childcare facilities, which would then require more underpaid childcare workers to be working there. So we're digging a deeper hole in terms of trying to provide better wages for the childcare workers. And I don't know a way out of that. But I would support doing the 201,000 to the Stotts Mill, because that's mostly done anyhow. That can finish that project out, and in exchange get an additional 5 years for county employees' child care, and 60,000 for the staff side. And I would actually do the tiered down one, just like, I think this is 160,000 is for the tiered program, not doing the full program. Somehow we need to come up with more help support childcare workers, and I don't know how we do that, and maybe get grant money from some 50 years when Molly worked in childcare at several different preschools in the valley, and she was chronically underpaid when she was doing that, nearly 50 years ago. So this is not a new problem. It's been going on for a long time. And I would actually be in favor of committing the other 200,000 we have remaining for the Little Red Schoolhouse, just as a, have that be a placeholder saying Pickens County does support the town of Snowmass Village in that project. And I don't know if we have to spend that money by a certain date, the 208,000, or can we just have it committed to them and sitting in an escrow account or something? How does that work, Ashley?
Hey, Steve, turn off your video if you would. You're breaking up that might help.
I would recommend, if you do want to kind of hold the 208,000 for potential Little Red, I would book it as COVID expenses so that we're done reporting and it's off our books by the end of 2024. So there's no questions from the feds, but put it into a different account with the anticipation of spending it in 2025. Or we could sign an IGA with the town before the end of the year that shows we're committing those funds, and then we don't have to transfer them until the town can put them to use. But we need to show that they are accounted, like there's a plan for them, whether it be COVID expenses or the town, by the end of this year, or else we lose them.
Can you articulate just a little bit more about how we can book it as COVID expenses? And
Then use it for the Little Red?
Does that fly, or is this like a sneak that's officially approved of?
It's an official sneak. It is one of the allowable uses of ARPA funds is for governments to recover from COVID and to reimburse themselves for expenses that we made during COVID for response. So that is actually the number one allowable use of ARPA money. And Gabriel, our grants manager here, has been in contact with the federal reporting agency that oversees ARPA, and they've said that we can do a certain amount of COVID expenses is that way. And since we already spent that money, we're not actually reimbursing. So it's really just in the reporting requirements from the feds.
Freeze it up.
Okay.
We-
Just want to make
we-
sure we're not being
We set
sneaky.
aside a lot of general fund dollars and shifted a lot of resources during COVID response.
That would
A lot more
replace
than
Those are
that we could
dollars that
spend
would
on the
otherwise
road.
be available for these types of requests. So you can think about it as replenishing that fund
Right.
balance
It's
from the
money
general
that we
fund.
put into housing and food security and stuff like that. Got it. That makes sense now. Thank you for explaining that.
I have a question.
Francie and then
Francie.
Patty?
So when you gave us the first report on child care, when we were looking at the stipends, I think you said there were about 100 children that needed placement? Or was that just that there were 100 child care providers? The number 100 was there somewhere. Do you
There's
remember?
11 child care providers and there's 100 staff across those 11
And how many
providers.
children did we figure needed child care that were not taken care of?
That is not a number that I have,
Okay.
nor we have in the region to a great.
Okay. I'm just
Detail.
wondering, 40 at Stotts Mill and 60 in Snowmass, just 100 more places. I don't know what the deficit is, but just, I'm wondering about that.
Francie, let me just,
And the other question I had is, so if you build this facility, where are you going to get your childcare providers?
It's a great question. We have a wonderful provider on staff, Woody Creek Kids, and Christina, who's the
we
principal.
know Christina well.
You know Christina well, has committed. We extended her lease of the property for another 3 years, so I think that runs through 26. And so she, however her pipeline works for staffing, we would leave that up to her, obviously supporting in the ways that we have now. But the facility itself being improved would need additional staff, so we would work with her.
Yeah, I mean, that's where our whole stipend program came from, was
Sure.
it's really hard to keep them, so.
Yeah, and Francie, you're right, and that number is unknown because of people who have booked in 5 different places for a slot. My daughter runs a home childcare. She's got a wait list at her little childcare. I mean, she's in Glenwood, but my priority would be to fully fund the stipend. To see the looks on their faces when we gave them those checks and, oh, my car just got wrecked, now I can pay my deductible, and now I can, those kind of things were heartwarming. But I also see the need for, even though Stotts Mill I have some issues with as far as how they're going to staff, and the traffic flow from that facility on and off of Highway 82 is going to be interesting. But, to get their project finished for $200,000 and get that extra 5 years, which was of concern to me, I'm glad to hear that. So kind of vying between those two. And $2 million, I wish we could give you all the money for Little Red, but, that's a tough one because it would be nice to see what Pickens County people in need of childcare are going to be able to utilize there.
Well, they
This
are
is
in
tough.
Pickens County.
Well, technically they are, but when you can't go up there and get a house because you don't work in Snowmass, yeah, and I don't know, it's tough. That Snowmass doesn't, yeah.
Well, to date, we have put about $2,100,000 into childcare. And so I have one more concern about this facility, Jeff, I have to tell you. 60 kids under one roof is like a nightmare to me. I'm a rural person, and so having 60 kids under 5 in one building, I would never put my kid in there. Let me
No,
put it
but
that
you're
way.
going to have to go there and work, Francie, one day a week.
I have to go there, put all my kids in there. It's really big, from my rural perspective. So it makes me gulp a little bit. Like 60 kids. I thought 40 was a lot when we visited Stotts Mill. So.
We can always reserve that extra, the leftover 200,000, and see where things pan out, and we could always put it back into the stipend program and expand that at some level. Yes, is that true?
Ashley, I want to ask, oh, go ahead.
Is
You
that
answer
true?
that first.
That we,
You
oh,
can't-
yes,
Put it for, off for
yes.
long.
If
now.
you,
The $208, $208,363. We could put that into booked as COVID expenses, and then at the end of the year or whatever, either give it to Little Red if that thought process changes, or put it into a stipend.
Yeah, it basically go into general fund balance at that point, and
At what
you can
point?
decide.
The end of this year?
Once we book it as COVID expenses, it'll go as a
Goes back to
reimbursement.
replenish the general fund, and then we can use it for other items such as
I'd
expanding
be
this.
really worried about that, because when money's in the general fund, you don't want to
Francie
take it
uses it.
out of the general funds. Seriously,
But
you
this
don't.
would be
I
earmarked
don't see
as
you
COVID
jumping on top of
expenses.
an opportunity to
Okay,
take it back
I
out.
want to bring it back to the subject at hand.
It is the subject at hand. We're talking
I
about
think-
whether to spend it now or put it in the
okay.
general fund. Isn't that the subject?
But
at
I think
hand?
it would be somehow labeled in the general fund that this was COVID expenses that,
as much as I don't love to say this, we do have 5 more months until we technically have to have it all encumbered. So if we can encumber some today, we're on our way. You could choose neither option for 208,000, not COVID expenses, not the town, not stipends, and I can come back in the fall, but that means right in the middle of budget season, and then we are up
prefer
on
you
a
didn't.
timeline. I would prefer I didn't either. I do want to recognize Francie, the staff recommendation is at the step down stipend program. You could take all of your remaining money and just put it towards full stipends and be done, and not do anything for Stotts Mill and not do anything for Little Red. And you can always consider those as partnerships out of other funds at the county if you want to. If you want to do both the Stotts Mill and stipends, that was my suggestion, that you did the step down for stipends as well as the Stotts Mill. It's unfortunate that 208,000 is not enough to do the full stipends
Yeah.
unless you pulled a little bit from general fund, which you have done for other ARPA contributions, for the West Mountain deed restriction program and for Stotts Mill. You pulled other money from general fund.
Yeah.
So you
It's
could do
like
that.
80,000 deficit or something like that. A little more maybe. 100,000 maybe.
It would be about 160,000
Oh,
if you
that
wanted
much.
to do, or
Can I ask about
Yeah.
the extension of the 5 years? Is it just, is it worth it? Do we have enough employees who would take advantage of that where we could really do some benefit?
we have 3 employees enrolled now for a school that starts in September.
Is it 30?
3
3.
of our 11 spots.
Got it.
We
So
have
we don't need to expand the number
We
of
have
spots.
interest from 8 others who are they don't have a child yet. They're not sure what's going to happen with their childcare, but I don't foresee us using more than 11 spots.
Right.
So I wouldn't recommend we double that to be 22
Right.
spots.
Does it make sense to go to 10 years?
I mean,
most of
we're
the
a
kids
lo-
would be out in 10 years, because
Well, there'll
hopefully
be
they'd
other-
be in
assuming there'll be
kindergarten.
other
There'd be
kids.
new families.
I don't think the childcare challenge is going away in the
Right.
next 10 years. I do think it's a great employee benefit.
Second babies.
Right. Now, does this stipend actually cover teachers that are at Stotts Mill and Red
Yes.
Brick and Little Red?
Yes.
So a stipend would cover everybody. So there's something to think about there, that we could at least help in that regard.
Everybody is already working though. What if there's new people?
They are accounted for in our budget numbers for 2025 for the stipend.
Planning ahead.
I think if
Okay,
I
Kelly
had to
has her
vote
hand up.
right now, I would vote for 200,000 to Stotts Mill and everything else to the stipend. And if we have to, the second half of 26, go down to 75% or something, if we can't alleviate 160,000 from our general fund. I think that's the way I'd go, and then figure out how to help Snowmass more as time moves on, to figure out a different avenue for helping Snowmass. I don't.
Yeah, I think my preference is to take this recommendation and then book the 208 for COVID expenses that we could use flexibly from the general fund.
Thank you. Okay.
If anything, if you wanted to go with staff's recommendation, I'd leave the 208 where it is and bring it back to us later to see where we should put it. Because Francie has, I think, a valid concern. If it goes in the general fund, where's it go?
I would just soon get this over with and go with the
too.
recommendation and give the 208 to Little Red and
Just get rid of it all now.
be done with it.
So, but we have 3 different ways to do it now. What about you, Steve?
I've agreed to 2. Should I agree to 3? Give me
you
4.
can agree to what I said, and then we're fine.
So right now we have, go
I
ahead. Steve.
suggested what Greg just said
Oh.
was my suggestion too.
I knew I liked it, Steve.
So you guys are suggesting 201 to Stotts Mill, 160,000 to the stipend with the phase down approach, and 208 to the Little Red.
And, yep, and then we've got it, and we've moved on, and, we don't have enough money to do everything we want to do, but at least we're spreading it out, and we're helping them move forward.
I think the 208 does more good putting in the stipend than 208 doing.
I was going to say the
Little
same
Red.
thing. I think that,
I think we can work on the Little Red
yeah,
further
it's a
down
very
the road
small
with
amount
assistance, with
for-
grant funding and helping you find grants. There's money out there. We might be able to facilitate in helping Snowmass find it
I agree
Easier than
with
finding
that. I think
stipend
it's
funds?
10% of
Yeah.
what they're asking
for
as
capital
compared
building.
to a pretty significant difference for our child
So,
care providers.
so you committed to helping them raise money for the Little Red?
Sure, in 4 years.
I have to get reelected.
You've got Kelly with her hand up too.
Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just explain my point a little bit more. I think that the Little Red project isn't fully baked for me. I'd love some further conversation with them. We're also trying to partner with Snowmass on a library project, as I understand. And so we might want to think about those together, think about those from a bigger picture. I think it's rare that we get the opportunity to sort of infuse flexible money into our general fund, and that there could be other things that we could use this for while rightfully and correctly, covering some expenditures we made from that in the past years. I'm thinking of the conversation pending about capital expenses that people have come to request of us. As I said, I think public health might have some really good COVID-related ideas. And
Have they come to you, Kelly? Just wondering where you got that. Has Jordan?
no,
Okay.
no, I'm just
So we don't
thinking,
even know if they need it or want it.
No, well, we do have a need in the community to boost up our vaccine rates.
For kids.
So we as a board can, help with that.
Not if mothers don't want them. That's a hard part.
I'd be more comfortable with Jordana bringing that to us.
I do worry that once it goes in, it'll never come out.
So do we have,
Kelly freeze?
Kelly, did you freeze up or did
No,
you?
I didn't freeze. I just heard a lot of people jumping in, so I guess
Thought you
I'll
were
stop
done.
now.
Thank you. So we got your point about putting it in the general fund.
And I think it's totally appropriate for me to say that I think as a board member, it's important for us to, say childhood vaccines are important and that we could work with public health on that. I owned that was an idea that I had after reading this. I don't think that makes it a bad idea because it wasn't generated from public health directly. I think it's very much in line with what we do.
That opens the door for a lot of suggestions. Okay,
Greg,
Ashley.
I would just invite Greg to comment on the proposal where 208,000 goes to Little Red this year and what that would mean for you all.
Sure. So the ask of $2 million may seem a little arbitrary. However, we're a small rural community within Pickens County, and our resources are limited, which is a story we've all heard before. And so that project costs of about $8 million. We really struggle with viability if we don't have full funding. And so we have aging infrastructure and competing needs that are basically asking for the same pot of dollars within our budget. Again, a story you've all heard before. And so that $2 million comes into what makes it pencil for us. So I brought I think 50% design documents. We are ready to break ground on this project next year. And if we can't get the funding for it, it does not happen. And we don't meet that need of expanding childcare in the community.
But you still need to take care of the kids you have.
We do.
And how many kids are there now?
About 25.
Got it. And do you have any sort of transportation, for instance, Patty's comment about people getting their kids to the facility?
And from.
And from without,
Yeah.
without having to drive there? Is
Sure.
there any options like that exist?
There's a couple, especially in the wintertime, or especially in the on-season, winter and summer. So, as you know, we've got a robust transit system in the valley with RAFTA, but then Snowmass Village and the Village Shuttle actually has complete saturation throughout the village. And then there's a number of multimodal components. So the site actually sits along one of our paths. It's served by WeCycle, it's served by the Village Shuttle itself. So if you were coming from, using your example, Commissioner, coming from Basalt and working for SkiCo, you could take
A bus to a bus to a bus with a kid.
you
and
would take the
stuff.
bus to a bus. And
Just
in the
two
high
buses.
season, there's actually a direct route
There is.
into Snowmass. And so the one transfer
But not to the Little Red.
would get you to Little Red. And so that's when you could make that decision
Right.
point of whether you wanted to continue on Village
So
Shuttle
it's
or
connected
use
by
a multi.
transit.
And
Yes.
The
our-
answer
It is, but
yes.
it's not easy transit with a kid and kids that.
Our maintenance and equipment grant program did pay for a new bus that Christina can use to transport the kiddos, not with their parents.
Right, it's not a drop-off.
Well, I'll
pickup
go
bus,
with Steve and Greg.
Oh,
Which
you've come
was,
around.
I want to spend it all now. I don't want to put it away.
Could you
Okay.
just repeat one more time?
so
That
we're,
we go with the recommendation and put the 208 into the Little Red now. And you know, they're going to come back to us. We have other needs for it, general fund and elsewhere. We have other asks that are going to be coming for use of COVID-type funds. It just seems to me that, you know, I think we can't go wrong. These are all win-win-win opportunities. Nobody's, you know, I don't think we're making a terrible mistake. We're just trying to divvy it up in some equitable way, and this makes sense to me.
So the 160,000 for the stipend means in 2025 it's 75%, and in 2026 it's 50%?
Unless somebody comes up with more money to put into the program.
Yeah.
You could
I
say
do
that about any
think
of
that
them.
the stipend will have a direct effect on people, but maybe if you need this kickoff to get going in Snowmass.
So are you still with Steve and me?
Yeah, I think that we should not try to bring it back again and again and again. It's like,
You know it's going to be busy this fall.
Greg has said that even though I think they'd be thankful for that amount of money, that they would request coming back at a work session and having a larger conversation about a larger partnership number. So I think you return to Little Red regardless of whether you commit funds to not or not.
I would
today.
invite you to come back, as we have with most of the nonprofits that are trying to do really good projects and meaningful projects in the community. So that doesn't mean we're going to fund it, but we welcome you to come back and talk about it. We'll try to get you some attention and
yeah, I think
put
we
you
have
on the radar.
200,000 in our capital fund opportunities, so,
something like that.
and we've got 200,000 in requests.
Okay,
so
Steve?
I can count to 3.
So,
He's changing his.
we
mind.
didn't really talk about Kelly's proposal, but I would actually like
Time's
to
up.
have, I'd like to have a report from Jordana about, her idea of like providing some sort of a stimulus for increased vaccinations for kids. I think that's a good idea, and I think that would be a bigger part of, public, you know, from our public health department, but, and if we could tie that to maybe require that the people sending their kids to these expanded daycare facilities absolutely need to have those vaccinations. Their kids need to be vaccinated. I think that's worth investigating. So giving support to Kelly's idea that I think we could do that, you know, be investigating that and have Jordana give us a report on that. I think that'd be great.
Great, thank you. I will ask Jordana, or we will ask Jordana to talk to us about that, and it is worthwhile. I totally agree. Okay, we've got three board members seem
We
to
have
agree.
direction.
And Patty's on,
I'm going,
okay with
there's
it.
3, so,
okay.
you're going
So
with
we know
us?
we've got at least 3.
This way? Towards
Well,
Greg's way?
there's 3. Well, there's you, Greg, and Steve, so
Yeah, that's,
We got 3.
I don't, is Steve still there?
Yeah, he's there.
Okay.
Okay,
Can I repeat what I think I'm hearing?
yes.
I think there's 3 of you who would support funding the Stotts Mill Child Care Center for $201,000, that remaining amount, in exchange for an extension of our lease or our priority spots for 5 years. Funding the child care staff stipends for $160,000, which is 75% of the amount in 2025 and 50% of the amount in 2026. And then signing an IGA and committing $208,000 to Little Red Schoolhouse for the construction in 2025, and then asking Greg and team to come back at a work session for more conversation.
Yes, that's how I,
At some point, but not in October, because Greg says we're gonna be really busy.
okay?
Yeah, and it's Greg and Francie and Steve, even though Steve just
Patty.
brought up, and Patty.
Well, Steve suggested we get Jordan in here to talk about vaccination, which is a separate topic but worthwhile.
Great.
So now we're at $2,460,000 for childcare in the last couple of years.
Okay, I think we've
And we
done a
still
lot
have
for
a huge
childcare.
need.
Okay, do you have direction? Because we need to move on.
I have direction. We are going to spend the remaining of our ARPA money by the time that we have to. Congratulations.
We got
So
it
you
done.
never have to come
Excellent.
back and see us again.
I'll be right back, Rick.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
the
Francie.
board is open to a presentation from Snowmass in the
Yes,
future.
as
about-
you know, I love it when people come in to show us what the good is happening in the community.
And then we tell you no, that we love having you come before
At
us.
least they come with pretty pictures.
Right, and
Thank
the
you.
community hears about it, the newspaper writes about it, and it just helps. So that's it, the least we can do is, and also we need to hear about it so we know that we're not the only ones doing things.
Are hearing it for us.
We'll coordinate with staff.
Yeah.
And thank you for your
Thank
time.
you very
Great, thank
much.
you. Thank you. I wish I'd gone to the Little Red Schoolhouse
I couldn't get Trevor in there, and they were probably lucky.
and the Wildwood School. I missed out on that too.
Trevor missed that too.
We're just
Couldn't
not big enough.
afford it.
Okay, next, Laura and Company.
Hi. Are you guys ready for us? No, we don't break.
I think we're good for now. Well, not till, I may need one later, but not now. No, we're good. But
5
we're a little bit
o'clock.
behind, so we're gonna keep
Get
it
into it.
trucking. So you just heard that.
We did. Got privy to the conversation. Share the screen. Okay.
Red light needs to be on.
Share screen.
Okay.
We're ready.
And you're gonna share screens for the visually oriented.
You think my audio's okay? You know, and I'm just gonna use it for
And I'm
this
sorry I
video.
missed your groundbreaking party. Gosh, I was on my way somewhere and I was caught in traffic and way far behind schedule because I was,
If we go to YouTube.
Rachel had asked me to come attend and I didn't get a chance, so I
Yeah.
apologize. It would have been fun.
It was
Now,
really
Laura,
cold and
Laura,
really wet.
I was just gonna
It was
say, we
really cold.
tend to go a little bit long and we built a little press for time.
Okay.
And I wanna give you all the time you need, but I wanna make sure if this is a long video, you might consider shortening it.
It's a 5-minute video.
You wanna use your time for that? Just asking.
I think it covers a lot of what we
Okay.
want.
Then
and
carry
give
on.
some
The half an hour we
visuals.
Let's see if it works.
Yes, and hopefully we are able
It'll
to
work.
do it. And if
You
it
are so
doesn't, then we will.
optimistic.
Well, let me just start, and then we'll try the video, and if it doesn't work, we'll
Wing it.
wing it.
You like live performance.
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you so much for inviting us today. So
Long time coming.
yes, well, we're happy to be here. I'm Lara Beaulieu. I'm the executive director of English in Action, and with me Heather Hicks Stumpf, our development director, and Robert Hubble, our board chair.
Welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to meet you.
And at some point on Zoom, and I don't know if they're on yet, Tim Johns from CORE and John Doherty, oh, I'm seeing them there, will join, and Tim will say a few words. John will only be on for a short period of time, and it looks like we also have one of our board members on Zoom, Gary Harada, as well. English in Action has, we've worked with Pitkin County workers and residents for the full 30 years of our history. We started as a program at the Basalt Library, and in 2005 formalized our partnership with the Picken County Library, and about that time also started to receive healthy community funds as well. So currently we serve around 60% of our participants are Picken County workers or residents, are adult learners, and many of our volunteer tutors are also Picken County residents and workers. So we see our work contributing to Picken County in a number of key ways. We believe that immigrant community members are the backbone of our economy, and so our work helps to promote a vibrant workforce where people have language skills to advance at work and to better support their families. And we also help immigrants to better engage in their family and their kids' education and in the school system. And we provide volunteers with opportunities to do something meaningful and to build cross-cultural relationships that we think really strengthen our community as a whole. So what we'd like to do today is spend about 15 minutes in our presentation and then 15 minutes for conversation.
Great.
And we'll start with a video. Robert will talk a little bit about his experience and the importance of our work to El Jabal. Tim Johns will say a few words about why CORE has supported our work, and Heather will talk about where we are in our campaign and our process.
Great. Thanks.
So, hoping to do the video successfully. So, let's see. Play.
Wanna make it full screen?
Yep. And my one question is sound.
Can't hear it yet.
I'm gonna pause.
That's usually where we have the problems.
Yep, it's working.
People together across cultural divides. Are you all hearing that, or is it just coming down the computer? At that time, we served around 100 people annually, and we currently serve up to 400 adult learners annually. The medium. English in Action is a vibrant center for learning. On any given day, we have individual tutoring pairs meeting here. We have staff working with students and tutors. We have our small groups happening. We have digital literacy. Our programs essentially compete for the same space. We're doing amazing work here, but we are absolutely bursting at the seams. This building itself is deteriorating. It's in the final stages of its life, and so we absolutely need a new space.
We envision a new building for our immigrant community that welcomes and honors and recognizes the commitments that our students make to our larger community, and also that our students and tutors make to one another. Through working with our staff and our students and tutors and board members, we've seen that we need about 3 times the space that we currently have.
This location is really ideal for us. People can walk here, and it's an easy location to get to through a variety of means of transportation. The owner of the land, Crawford Properties, has generously donated a 50-year lease to make this possible for us. The CEO of Crawford Properties is Robert Hubble. He is one of our board members. He's also one of our volunteer tutors. And this lease means that for every dollar we raise, we'll be able to focus those funds on the building itself.
We have one-on-one classrooms where a student and tutor could meet. We also have several small group tutoring rooms where you could have one tutor with several students, and then larger spaces where people can do trainings or come and learn more about English in Action.
One of our long-term students, Maria Zelaya, has been very interested in when English in Action is going to get a new building. Maria came to us one day and asked whether it might be possible for her to pray in the building. What she was praying for was a new building for English in Action. Maria was one of the first donors to English in Action. She said, "I've been saving up." She brought in a crisp $100 bill. And she's now come back 3 times with donations for this project.
I am grateful, no, for English in Action. Y quiero ver a todos los docentes que ya no estén en un espacio reducido, sino que en un espacio grande, que se sientan muy, very happy. Gracias. Thank you very much for your help.
You know, for me, English in Action is my second home. The new building represents the place that we can meet and learn and grow and flourish. And the effort of the community to think that we are humans, that we need to have a place to say hello, welcome to our home. And this is the place, the new building.
This new building will be the first of its kind in our valley and possibly in our region that celebrates our immigrant community members. And we invite you to join us in becoming an even better organization. English in Action, this is our vision for the future. It's so exciting, and we really invite our community to join us.
Got me.
I was just thinking, Laura and Robert, my parents, Peter and Johnny, I think they did English programs, and I'm assuming it's with English in Action. It's been so long, I do not remember. But when they were there, they were teaching English and helping people read, and it was something that was really special to Peter, my stepfather. This is probably 25 years ago. Yeah. So anyway, that's really, it's great to see it. And the burning question before you continue the presentation is, you know, how many people do you think you've affected in the community on both sides, whether they're the teachers or the students? Because it seems to me this is a really important language gap we've got to cross with the workforce, the people getting the work done.
Yeah. So we just we're celebrating our 30th anniversary, and I think that we estimate that we've impacted 45,000 community members over time through kind of the ripple effect of our work. We have worked with about 3,000 adult learners over our history. So.
Wow.
Great, thanks. Now, last question. Are those modular units? Like, are you looking at modular, or is this stick-built, or what are you thinking?
This will be a stick-built building, around 6,000 square feet. So,
and we looked at all of them. We looked at modular, we looked at steel, and we looked at a stick-built, and stick-built came out to be actually right in line, and we were able to design it the way we wanted to.
Interesting. I keep
so we
hearing
really
that.
want a space that honors the learning and hard work of our,
Right.
our participants.
Glad to hear. Okay, thank you.
So Robert, if you can talk a little bit about what English in Action has meant to the LGBL community.
English in Action has been in LGBL for over 20 years. Before that, it was in the library. But having a place in LGBL like this is amazing for our community. It's been extremely important for our community. As you know, LGBL is a very diverse community. We're trying to work on unity all the time and, you know, include everybody. I learned about English in Action from my mother, Adele. Her and my Aunt Bonnie were both tutors at English in Action. And my mom, if you've met her, she loves to talk in the office. She's 82 now. She goes in the office every afternoon and loves to speak either in Spanish or English and just share stories. I joined English in Action about 10 years ago as a tutor. My student was, adult learner was Carlos Rivas, and we're still good friends today. He came into English in Action to get a promotion at work. He worked at a resort in Snowmass as a housekeeper manager, and he wanted to be the manager of maintenance and housekeeping, and also wanted to be able to communicate better with the front desk, especially over the phone. So we worked on that for probably 2 or 3 years before he finally got the promotion. And then he went on and became a volunteer firefighter at the Roaring Fork Fire District, which that was really cool, and helping him get through that process. Just the other thing I want to say about English in Action, during COVID, English in Action was key to helping us reach out to the community and make sure that they weren't isolated. That, hey, there's resources out there to communicate. You're not going to lose your housing because, you know, the work that you do up in Aspen, Snowmass, or wherever isn't open. We're going to ride this out together, and we did. The English in Action Center for Communication will ensure for generations that this continues to go on. The old mobile home was falling apart, and we're excited. Crawford Properties, Elgibel, we're very excited for this project.
And is that building gone now?
It is gone.
I don't miss it, but I missed it going away.
It was fun seeing it drive off down the road.
Right.
So,
And speaking, just before, well, Robert, while you're here, you're at Crawford Properties.
Yes.
You're probably one of the largest affordable housing landlords in the, is that the right term? Like, you know, you're accommodated, you lease spaces to, I don't know how many people, but it's multiple hundreds of people in our workforce.
Yes.
So I just wanted to point out that you're right there, you're at the epicenter of communications and making it happen with affordable housing.
Yeah.
And we really are trying to keep it affordable. The mobile home park side of it is, we're trying to keep, obviously, the space rents down. But what we're also really excited about is on the rental side. We have over 60 rental units, and they're all below 100%, all at or below 100% AMI.
Wow. Where are they?
In Elgibel, like, so 46, we put in 46 new units back in 2017 across from Eagle Crest. All those are rentals.
You mean they're like
new-looking
double
places.
wides?
Yeah.
With
Yep.
the rocks?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So those are
Those
all
are rentals.
Those are all
Oh.
rentals. We had investors coming in wanting to
Kind of gotten off.
buy all 46, put their own on and rent them, and we were like, no, we want to keep this affordable. So we've been able to maintain that model of sustainability to keep it. So 38 of them are at 100% AMI, and the remaining are at 80% AMI.
That's really awesome.
We may need to bring you in as a consultant at
So.
some point.
That's really great.
Thanks.
Thanks for that work.
Yeah, thank you.
and that is really, a key example of why Elgibel, it's important for us to be in that location and to be able to serve the whole valley, people who live or work between Aspen and Carbondale. So our groundbreaking was May 1st, and we've poured the foundation. Framing's due to start in the next couple of weeks. So the building's well on its way to being constructed, and we expect to move in spring 2025. Our efficiency, energy efficiency, was a key goal of ours, and we have received a $40,000 grant from CORE, as well as support from Holy Cross. And I'd love to just, if Tim Johns could speak a little bit about why CORE chose to support this project.
There he is. Hey, Tim.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to talk about this kind of briefly. So we've had a really great relationship with English in Action. We've been involved in the process from pretty early on. And this project's cool because originally English in Action's building was going to have a gas line for cooking and water heating, but through some advising and discussion with them, we were able to help guide them toward an all-electric design. So they switched from gas stoves to induction cooking and to an electric water heater. In terms of space heating, they're doing a heat pump variable refrigerant flow. So that's really cool. It's probably the most efficient most efficient way of electrically heating a building. So we used our dollars to try to encourage and incentivize English in Action to make this building all electric so that it could be a model for future new construction projects in the Valley. Because we need as many successful projects that are replicable in the Valley as possible. Because with each project, it helps show that it's viable to have an all-electric design. And so with conversations with English in Action, it's been really clear that they have been eager and made it a priority to have an energy efficient building and just a sustainable building design in general. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about their building design in general.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Back to you guys. I want to make sure we don't have a lot of time left.
Heather will just talk a little bit about where we are in our campaign, and then we're open to any other questions.
And I'm hoping that Josie or somebody from the newspaper or Austin or somebody's listening, because we really want to get you some publicity for what you're doing. People know about you, but it always helps.
Yes.
It does. It really does. Thanks, Laura. Well, Chairman Postman and fellow commissioners and staff, hello, John. Nice to see you again. Thank you so much for having us. I wanted to just kind of fill you guys in on the campaign side of this exciting project. We launched our Welcome Home campaign, as we called it, and Estella, who is now our board chair, made reference in the video. Vice Chair, thank you. That the immigrant community really sees this as their second home, as a place where they can feel seen and heard. And so we launched this Welcome Home campaign in May of 2022. And over the last 2+ years, we have secured $4.656 million of our $5 million cash goal. And we have raised funds from 350 individuals, businesses, and foundations. So this is not a campaign built off of a few wealthy donors or a few foundations or government grants. It's really an effort, broad-based effort of the community. I want to talk a little bit about that, the funds we've raised and kind of who's donated and how we've gotten to that place. So we began with 100% board, staff, and advisor giving. And that's anything from $20 from one of our program staff to a 6-figure gift from several of our board members. From there, we have had 2 successful matching grants of $50,000 each. Last fall, we had a $50,000 grant with the Cato Shaw Foundation, and we really leveraged their support to inspire our student and tutors to give to the campaign. And we raised $25,000 from 125 participants. So that's students and tutors. 70 of those donors were our adult learners. And many came in with cash gifts. They were so proud to make those gifts. Maria Zelaya, who you saw in the video, she's come back maybe 4 or 5 times with more $100 bills. So this is a project that the people in our programs deeply believe in and are committed to supporting as well. And then of our $5 million cash goal, since sending you the packet, we actually have less to raise. So when we reported to you that we had, I think we have 20,000 or so less to raise. So we have 344,000 to get to the finish line of our $5 million cash goal. We anticipate closing out the Welcome Home campaign sometime this fall. So it is time limited, but we will continue to receive pledge payments over the next several years. When we started, some folks made gifts pledged over several years. So that's something that we're working with. So yeah, I guess this is our 30th year anniversary. So we're coming to all of you with great success and enthusiasm, and also knowing that last $344,000 can be the most challenging to raise. So we're inviting Pitkin County to support our Valley's workforce and our immigrant community with this project, the symbolic home, for the next 30 to 50 years for English in Action. And we're asking you for consideration of a $50,000 investment for 2024. And depending on how your budgeting process goes, if appropriate, to consider a $50,000 gift for 2025 as well, for a total investment of $100,000.
Great, thank you. That was very
Welcome.
succinct.
In looking at the
Adding
numbers
in
in the
Francie.
packet, I'm a
Yes.
little confused.
Yes.
Because it says total cash raised to date and projected is 5 million. Then it says, on the other side, total revenue, 5,500,000.
Yes, so let's talk about that. And if you look at the attachments, we have the English in Action Center for Communication budget. So we have
That's
a
what was, yeah, I've got
Yep,
it in front of
great.
me.
So a $5 million cash goal, and then we have a $500,000 in-kind project-specific goal. So for example, Steelcase, the furniture we're sitting on, they have committed to $178,000 in-kind. So we're counting that in that $500,000 project-specific in-kind donation. So total combined goal of $5.5 million. We have raised
This looks
250.
like you've cash raised 5 million.
So we've raised 4.656.
Okay, just to click, because the
Yep.
numbers you're saying don't, it's hard to.
Yeah, we've
quote.
raised more since we submitted this packet.
And
That's a good question.
What about significant, I think the building will be more efficient, obviously. But what about, it's a much larger building, there's a lot of space, a lot of meeting rooms from your design that's in the packet. What about your operating expenses? You're gonna have a significant increase.
Yeah, so we anticipate an increase in terms of operating expenses of around 15%, 15 to 20% increase. And the efficiency of the building is
Gonna help.
is a key part of ensuring that our increases stay manageable.
Yeah, because I know we help fund operating expenses through the Healthy Community Fund, which is also getting pulled in lots of directions these days. But yeah, but I really appreciate that you're being here in the presentation. The work you've done is amazing. But you offer this assistance to our immigrant population, but only Spanish, or would you have other languages you offer? Because
We have other languages as well. Yes. We'll work with any immigrant, and the majority are Spanish speaking, but we've worked with folks from over 35 countries.
Okay.
And one of our staff members, Sinta, is from Indonesia. She does not speak any Spanish. So we really have a wide variety. It's reflective of the people who are here working and living in our community. And while we focus on working specifically with adult learners, one of the great aspects of our new building is we'll have space to rent to like-minded organizations like Valley Settlement and their BoCC program. So they are a free preschool, and the way their model works is they park in our parking lot, they use our restrooms, they can heat up their lunches in our kitchen, and so we'll be able to do more of that. So it'll be like an incubator, like a community space where English in Action, that's our building owned by us, but we can certainly rent out our space to other groups.
What about reverse? So someone like me who also works, I have another job where most of my coworkers speak Spanish, and I speak some, but do you do the reverse? Do you help people that speak English speak another language? I know you can get it through CMC and others, but you can also get English as a second language through CMC.
So historically, our focus has been on helping people learn English because that's a critical need for people's advancement at work and involvement in the community. In our tutoring relationships, a key part of those tutoring relationships is the friendship and connection that happens. And so oftentimes there's two-way learning that happens on multiple levels, including around language. one of the advantages of our expanded space is that we will be able to consider programming that we haven't considered in the past. Learning for English speakers who would like to learn Spanish or another language, that may be part of our future.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you guys know Ana Tapia?
Yes, we do.
She's my manager at Fat
Oh,
Valley.
yeah. She's amazing.
She's
Been working with
amazing.
her for a long time.
So Anna is a great example of another aspect of our programming that we're committed to enhancing, and that's student leadership. So Anna is on our student leadership committee, and she's one of 12 members. They meet monthly, and they are out in the community taking on initiatives, amplifying their voice. They want to give back.
Yeah.
So it's a really powerful group, and we're happy to have her involved.
Yeah, she's amazing. She works for WeCycle as well. She really
Oh, wow.
gives of her time, and she also volunteered to be a interpreter for RAFTA. She's an amazing person. So, do you guys have a Venmo account?
We do not have a Venmo account.
What's your mechanism for receiving funds?
On our website, we have a donation page.
Okay.
That's englishinAction.org.
Yes, correct.
So we have a few requests which are similar to yours, and we're really close to making a decision on them. I mean, within days of making a decision on them. And I will certainly be advocating for us to consider you seriously as one of the recipients.
We appreciate it.
Of our
Community
funds.
thanks you.
Thank you.
Remember,
Yeah,
Francie,
that's
there's
great.
200,000 and you've already,
We're at 100. So
We've already
we're
spent
good.
2 million of that.
We're good.
And I should mention too that we have a concurrent request with Eagle County as well, and we're hoping that that the potential gift from Pickens County will be motivating to Eagle as well.
That's
So
your
you're asking us to make a challenge to them?
There you go. I
We
knew
love
you were
it.
coming.
Wouldn't
I'm
hurt.
waiting for that challenge to come the other way. but-
Well, it's happening
timing thing.
simultaneously,
It is.
so chicken and egg.
Right. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
bringing this in. This was really great, and to have all three of you here was great, and to see the video, the whole thing, and to see familiar faces in the video. Wow,
Right.
that was cool.
Yes, you know some of those folks.
We do, yeah.
And thank you so much for your work with affordable housing. I'm sorry, what is your name again? Paul-
My name is Robert Hubble.
Hubble.
My grandfather has a long history of affordable housing and providing that.
Those
So it
units
just-
are beautiful, and they're
It's really
so
great.
clean.
Now, your grandfather provided the housing for the building of Ruda, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. and
That's
it was
where
off
that's where it
family
all
property.
started.
Oh, wow.
And then they had the foresight to buy the homes from the Army Corps of Engineers because Aspen started taking off, and they were looking for workers, and so
Been there ever
that's how
since.
El Jabal.
How many people do you house, do you think? What, you have a tally, census?
Probably around 1,500 people.
Got
And
it.
that's from
In housing?
in housing.
In your housing?
Yes,
Wow.
with the El Jabal Mobile Home Park and just, I mean, just 355 spaces on the mobile home park side, and then our rentals, 60, so,
Thank God the neighborhood was saved
410
in the
houses.
Lake Christine fire.
yes.
Would have taken that
Yeah.
whole neighborhood. I spent a lot of time at that, not a lot, but time at that baseball field that's there.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually a really
Dog
great
likes the
neighborhood.
ditch.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Adjacent
Well,
to
I
the
think
new
that makes you an angel.
Well, from a family, how many people are in your family are in this operation?
Oh, currently,
1,500.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So directly, 9 are directly involved, like day to day.
Right, great. Oh, yeah, that's a great
Of
legacy.
your family?
That's so cool.
Yeah,
You
some
all
are,
get along after?
oh, yeah. we do.
Good for you. Even more of an angel.
This is on TV, just.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
We get along great. It's great.
Getting along well. Yeah.
Right, well, thank you for
Thank you,
coming
guys.
in.
It's really nice.
We're gonna be talking about this. I'm so glad you came in, and we'll see what we can do to help,
Thanks.
one way or
It's our
another.
pleasure. Thanks for
Yeah, thank
having
you.
us. Thank
Tell
you,
tell
Kelly
Eagle
and
County
Steve.
that we're waiting for their call.
Okay.
You need to throw down the marker.
Okay.
All right.
We will.
Sounds
Great.
good.
Thank you.
That was great. Nice video, better than the last one.
And it worked. We're impressed.
That means a lot coming from you,
You
Greg.
made the last one,
As a
that's the only way
video-
I'd say that.
as a
What's
video
that?
guy. It means a lot coming from you.
That's another 1,500.
Well, I was the one who
added
made
to
the
our
last one,
34
so.
for App Chat.
Well, and you introduced us to Krisha,
Oh.
who made this one.
And she did a great job. I was trying to think, wow, that's really nice. So it's Cretia. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that. I could use a couple minutes of a break,
Okay?
and then we'll come back.
What's a couple?
A couple.
And then we come
Four.
back.
Greg time or
Five.
regular time?
5. Hey, I think I've been pretty good. Okay, welcome back. It's Tuesday, July 23rd, and we are coming up on, let's see, future
agenda.
agendas is what is on our
Future
calendar
agendas.
next. August 6th questions. And guess what? We're going to have another presentation on August 6th, or 2 or 3, from Lift Up is coming in.
I do have a question about August 6th.
Okay.
May I, John, or did?
Yeah, I've got
No, he's got more.
a couple things, but yeah,
What
shoot.
is the new workforce task force?
So it's new workplace, and Patty, this is something that it may be
I didn't
I'm
know
not
we were
looking at it.
creating a task force to study who's in the building and who's not.
So what it is
Francie loves that, you know.
We hired 10 people to do a study, Patty.
yeah. No, so what this is working through those issues related to hybrid work, in-person work, and making recommendations. And so we're coming to you to just talk about how we're approaching that in the organization.
You know, I have a very simple solution. And I've told you, and it didn't take 10 of me to figure it out, which is at least two warm bodies in every department 5 days a week. Let them figure out who works what days and who doesn't. But if you want to study it and bring it back to us, Francie will be more than happy.
There's a famous saying from architecture school. In architecture school, we had a professor who would always start out each season saying, "There's a simple solution to every problem, and it's wrong." So
Touche.
it's like you have to
I'm
understand.
trying to bring common sense into the government, and I know that's impossible, but I'm determined.
Well, you've been at it for a long
So,
time.
John,
and you've done
that's
a
what
lot of
I
good
thought
work.
it
can
was.
say
I
that.
just had to make a point of bringing it up.
No,
So after the Lift Up presentation on whatever day it is,
The 6th?
then can we decide
About what?
about the $200,000 distribution?
Oh, I don't know. Who else is coming in?
That's
Is
it.
that it? We done? For now? I won't say any more.
that is my understanding right
Last
now.
one.
Yeah, so we'll try and pull a memo together, just reminding you of the different requests and such. And not clear
allocated?
how you want to consider, there was a rather large request, I think, coming out of Habitat. I assume you're wanting all of those in the same pool.
Habitat
come
for their
forward.
building
Yeah.
and rifle.
Yeah.
We don't have time set aside, oh yeah, discussion on grant requests from nonprofits, it's on there for an hour.
Yeah. And then we're done with it for this year. It's a recurring 200,000, right? Every
Well,
year.
that's going to be up to you each year.
Well,
Only one time.
Since we're talking about it, the thing I like about this is that what we're finding out is how many really good, efficient, well-run organizations that don't need our administrative or legal or organizational help that are doing great work. And if we can encourage the community to support them along with us, I think we're getting a great bang for the buck when we do things like this. So
They're already-
that's
Love
my
those
argument.
comments. Thank you.
But we're already supporting them with the Healthy Community Fund, big time. Most communities
we
in
do
this
a lot,
country
yeah.
aren't
That's a
doing.
good
I
thing.
know, it's a great
I'm
thing.
saying that's a good thing, and
Yeah,
so,
it's working.
but now we're looking at supporting their capital things, which is a
But we've
tough
never
one.
helped
Yeah,
Epic
sorry.
before, just to say.
Well, Epic has never gone through the Healthy Community Fund grant cycle as far as,
It's because they're asking for capital funds, not.
only.
Yeah.
So the only thing I had on future agendas was following up on, we have a request in to the city to come in and do a presentation on Castle Creek Bridge. They'd requested to go after August 5th because they're bringing new information forward to their council at that time. And so we're looking at the 13th or 20th, and so just waiting for that to come back. So
Great.
just wanted to let you know that wasn't.
Especially in
due to
light of the
cracks.
letter they just received from CDOT.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's more to that story. I've heard that the CDOT letter is an old letter, and it may not be entirely accurate the way it was reported. So
Well,
I think we can
talk
wait
to
till,
Rachel Richards
let's wait
and
till
she'll
the 12th or
differ
the
with you.
20, whatever it is, until,
Yeah.
hopefully by then they'll have it sorted out.
I think there's going to be some additional information coming forward the 5th. I don't know the nature of that. Yeah.
Yeah. When you get a date for that, will you let me know? Like, how
Yes.
soon?
Yeah.
Are we choosing that today, or you're just waiting to see what the city
Just
says?
yeah.
So-
Both of those days have a lot
be
of
the-
room on
And it's
on
not
your
a joint
agendas.
meeting, it's just presentation.
It's
to
just
us.
staff coming in. Yeah.
The 6th or the 20,
20.
The 13th or the,
The 13th or the
Oh.
20th.
13th or the 20th are the two dates that they may come in. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. All right.
And Greg Kelly's
I'd like to
hand.
jump
went
in
up.
on that item.
Sure,
please.
please do.
Will our staff be presenting to us at that time sort of what the county's historic role has been or legal role currently is, or any of that to set context for
Great.
us?
Thanks for that question. We talked about this at the agenda meeting, right? And I think you kind of gave us a briefing, or
Yeah, so
right?
Kelly, we'll be able to speak to that. I think we had let the city go first. Some of that history about the record of decision and such has been in their presentations, and we'll try and work with the attorney's office so you understand also the roles relative to what it was we signed on as and what that means in the record of decision. I think that's the main kind of question out there right now.
Will there be any surprises to what our liability or responsibilities are beyond what we understand now? It sounded like it was less.
I do not believe there will be, but the nature of surprises, Greg, is you don't know.
You just don't know. I was just trying to think that you kind of
You don't
you
say.
gave me a sense of relief when you described it to me last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's really all I have for future agendas at this
Oh,
point.
well, that's easy enough. Anyone else presently?
Well, just to let you guys know that I was supposed to go down to the Club 20 this week, and I may not, Patty, because I'm going to be at that other meeting until noon on Thursday, but I might drive down afterwards. Haven't decided yet, but just so you guys know, I'm not definitely going to Club 20.
Got it. You can all zoom in if you need to, right?
I'm sorry, Steve, this other meeting has come up, but I may go. I just haven't quite decided. I did register.
I have an open discussion item
Right,
that
let's-
affects
we'll move-
future agendas.
We'll move to open discussion.
How does that work? I think the agenda-setting meetings on Thursdays have evolved. Many years ago, it was the chairman and the county manager would just figure out how to time allotments. Then it became a little more. Then it became then it became a little less. Just the county manager Hillary was just doing it. And now it's evolved into what I'm concerned, I think it's great, if I was the chair or vice chair, to be part of more of a policy discussion that comes up around agenda setting. So sometimes I feel like I'm kind of caught off guard because the chair and the vice chair are way ahead of the curve than the rest of us. So I would like to see if we can hone it back a little bit and do agenda setting at these meetings rather than get into these deep dive policy discussions. So like you just said, and we're like, what are you talking about? So I think that would be key because I think we kind of all need to be operating at the same level of information and understanding. Just a
Good
suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
be
Okay,
taken
Kelly has her
seriously.
hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in those meetings for a while. What I know I personally found useful about them is staff would seek board input about any potential like flags, I think. So like what are going to be hot spots in the conversation? You know, is there things that board members are hearing out in the community that could affect how long a conversation gets scheduled for? So I don't want to like hamstring the ability for that to happen because I think it does contribute to being able to schedule well instead of giving something a half hour that maybe ends up needing an hour or more, because the board members have better insight on it.
Thanks for
Can I
that,
ju-
Kelly.
But Greg, that's only 2 members of the board that are giving input, not all 5 of us. So I may hear different
Well,
things.
then we can have those conversations here during open discussion.
That's true.
I
That's
mean,
true.
during future agendas.
Thank you for bringing it up, though. But what Kelly brings up is accurate, because we've had, an opportunity to say, is this going to take an hour and a half, or is there something we need to worry about? Is this going to be is there a trap?
Right, which I understand, but
Yeah.
wonder if I'm not at that meeting and I know more about it. It might take you an hour that you don't know because you haven't talked to the same people on the street. So you're hearing from
Well,
two.
I think that scheduling meetings with John in addition for the other members is really important.
Well, I talk to John all the time. I'm just saying I don't want in-depth policy discussions rather than just, oh, it's going to take us more time, rather than having staff there to say, oh, here's more, this is why we're having this meeting and get
You
into
don't want to
the.
get us into decision-making, and I completely
Or-
agree with you.
Yeah, just being way far ahead of the rest of us.
Steve, anything you can share on this topic? You know what we decided about previously?
Yeah, absolutely. The agenda setting meeting doubles for me as my chance to meet with John, and we talk about policy. We talk about more than just setting the agenda, because I don't have a separate time I meet with John, and this is my regular meeting with John, so it kind of doubles as that too, and that's probably one reason why we get into discussing broader issues than just setting the agenda. So just to set the record straight on that, but I totally get your point, Patty, that we shouldn't be making decisions at our agenda setting meeting. It's more for getting information, but then that information needs to get to all of you equally.
We do have
I'm
to
not
decide
saying you
about the
guys make
agenda, though.
decisions, Greg. I'm not saying you make decisions. I'm just saying that you're way ahead of the rest of us on what
Usually.
we're gonna be talking about, and it's like, wait a minute, where is this all coming from?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the input on that. Well, we don't want to keep anybody in the dark. Are we ready to move on? Is any other open discussion? We did have some letters, and maybe this is a time to discuss some. We had a letter suggesting that we hold public comment at the ends of meetings,
Jackie's letter.
both at at our board meetings and at the advisory board meetings, and I assume every other meeting. And I'd just like to put that out there for discussion. I personally don't think that I would choose to do that, but I wanted, if anyone else has anything to add.
Can I think the airport advisory board meetings should, my thinking would be follow more of the same protocol we follow here. You have your 3 minutes of public comment on items not on the agenda, and then I don't know how they split up, like work session discussion versus decision-making discussion, but work sessions are up to the chairman if he wants to entertain public comment. I think that might hold true for the AAB. And then any decision-making discussion, they may want to open that up to 3 minutes of public comment. And I talked with Ellen Anderson and told her I was having a hard time with putting open discussion, public comment at the end of our meeting when we've been here for hours, and she didn't agree with me that she said we should still be open for that at the end of a meeting. But if we're allowing public comment during our meetings, I think we kind of go out of our way to provide time for the public, and in some cases, even at work sessions. So I think just following more of the same protocols we follow here, process, I should say, as we follow here.
Thanks, Patty. Kelly and Steve.
Oh, I was going to bring up a separate matter, so I don't know if you want to.
Steve, do you have something else, or do you
Talk
want to
about
talk
Patty
about
Hudson?
this?
Yeah, separate matter.
Okay, well, thanks, then that ends it for me. I don't intend to change our
No,
policy.
I was just
Go
going
ahead.
to it. So I think that the point that you can't talk about anything that's on the agenda before the meeting, but don't most of those meetings also have public comment right after the topic? Like,
During
we
the
say
topic,
at
the topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. you
So
can-
it's not like nobody has a chance to
If it's a
comment
public hearing,
on stuff that's
or-
on the agenda. They do during
Yeah.
the course of the
I
meeting,
think,
right?
yeah. And I think there's a fairness issue here, and
Yeah.
You'll probably
So
like that.
we have two different processes. We have the Airport Advisory Board, which is what prompted this. And I think Rich can talk to us a little bit about how that board is operating. And then during how this board operates, during work sessions, the board typically doesn't take public comment. It's an opportunity for the board to workshop. There have been exceptions to that
To the
where the
chair.
chairs accepted public comment at work sessions. Then in our regular meetings, it's very well specified where there is a public hearing and where the public is going to have an opportunity to comment on items that are specifically on the agenda. We don't have those same types of requirements built into, for example, our charter for advisory boards like the Airport Advisory Board. So I thought, Rich, you might be able to provide a little bit of clarity about how y'all have been operating there.
Yeah, good. Thank you, John. Yeah, we had started out when we first set up the advisory board to mimic what was going on with the BoCC, where you had 3 minutes at the front end. We did not add that it was at the chair's discretion to go past that. However, I think it was Ellen that came in and requested that we consider doing something at the end. The board discussed it and decided to add it. So what they ended up doing was 3 minutes for non-agenda items, 3 minutes at the end of the meeting for those items that were on the agenda. And so we did that in response to opening it up even further. And now I understand she's wanting us to add back in additional time for the chairman at the front end. The AAB, at our last meeting, Ellen brought this up and they agreed to talk about it. And we can put it on their next agenda, and some guidance here would be helpful if you guys have some direction. But we give it on the front end and the back end. And I can tell you some of the comments were, well, if we do that and open it up on the front end, let's take it away on the back end. Because we do offer comments on any item that they're going to take action on. We have public comment on.
Thanks.
However, we don't take public comment on just normal items because it's really not a work session. So there is a difference between a work session and the regular.
Thank you, Rich, for that. That's an interesting thought. I didn't realize you were doing that on the back end. My feeling is that I would invite it, and I have it in a work session, but only if the person commenting is actually working with our staff, consulting with them, having teed it up in advance. Because we've seen the instances with Ellen in particular, well, she'll come in and just throw a curveball, and it takes our staff off guard. It throws us off guard. It doesn't seem to be a positive way of contributing to the conversation. I'll just be frank, and I won't allow that to happen again.
Can I just?
Let me finish.
Okay,
So I'm fairly comfortable leaving things the way they are for us. But if they're working with staff and there's something to be added of value that's going to contribute to the conversation, and staff isn't caught off guard, then I think I would welcome it. But I kind of want the staff to come to me and say, hey, I'd like to invite so-and-so who has a thought on this. I think that's the way I'm going to approach it, only because I feel burned in the past. I'll tell you, I don't know how, regarding comment at the end, I'm also thinking, is there a fairness issue with that? If people come and they realize they're going to have to wait to the bitter end, whenever that is, to be able to find out what the other person is saying, is there an issue with fairness to the public? So that's something I'd like to ask you all. Thank you. Patty?
my
and
issue
then-
is, what's the benefit of doing it at the end of the meeting? If we've already moved forward and had the discussion, and then at the end of the meeting they say, I would like to comment on that decision you made 4 items ago. It just makes sense to do it the way that if the AAB wants to take, at the end of their meeting, fine. I'm not suggesting that this board do that. And as far as taking public comment on every work session, our work sessions are set on a time frame. So we would never be meeting that time. We allot time to speakers and to presenter, to these groups. I think that it's a time for us to discuss things. But I think that and I also mentioned to Ellen that we have a great website that people can submit comments on. And she said, well, the public should hear, but those comments are public. and the public can pull those up and see all the other comments. And that's, I think, important. But, and I appreciate the time that Ellen puts in, and she says she takes off a block of time from her other job, her job. And that's why we try and do public comment at the beginning of our regular meetings at lunch hour. And then let people know when our items we put on our agendas, when it's public hearings, so people have some idea as to when to gauge their time. But, I do want to provide for public comment, but we also need to provide for us to have discussions at work sessions and to move things forward.
Thank you.
Or not moving
Well
forward,
said.
whichever direction we go.
Anything else on this before we go to Kelly and then Steve? Francie, go ahead.
I've been frustrated sometimes about how short that 3 minutes is for a lot of people who wait for hours to talk. And so I hope that if we're not going to increase the opportunities for talking, that we do stick with it. I think we all do this. Do stick with allowing people who are on topic and have constructive things to say to us to sometimes go over 3 minutes, and you do.
We do.
And, yeah.
We do that.
Yeah, but then everybody's going to say I'm on topic and I have
No,
things
we
of
decide,
substance.
not them.
Well,
That ends up being at my
I think we're
discretion,
going to
right?
be called on fairness and discrimination if we
discretion.
do that. So we
Well,
either
we've
need
been
to
doing it that way since.
we need to
for
stick with
4
3 or go
years.
to 5. And 3 minutes of speaking is, and I speak a lot. 3 minutes is a lot of time.
For some people, well, when they come with auxiliary information, like when Ellen has worked really hard on our handbook stuff and she's put all this time into it, I don't see the point in cutting her off in 3 minutes. What do we gain by doing that? I think we lose.
I read all of her
that.
stuff, so I was ready because I'd already read it. So
Well, we've been doing it ever since I got on the board, so I'm just saying I hope we continue to do that.
we did
Thank-
not do it when
thank
I
you.
was on the board, when I was chairman.
Not when Patty was chair. Okay, who's chair next? That was my question.
We don't know.
Who's teed up next, John?
Don't
Do we
go
know?
there right now.
I'll have
Hold
to
on.
willing to
pull that
sell
up.
my
I
seat.
can't.
We're going to bring
I
the
know you had
LSO
Kelly and Steve, and then staff has a few open
Right,
discussion
okay.
items too.
We do have open discussion from the peanut gallery. I see you all out there. Okay, Kelly and then Steve.
I have an item I'd like to talk about, but on this matter, I just would say, I think that our boards should just follow the protocol that we think works for us and allow them that latitude. A work session is not time for comment. People can email their thoughts. No decisions are being made. They can contribute to that broader dialogue through other means. And when decisions are being made, I think it's appropriate for them to comment on that item as that item comes up. So, exactly how our public hearing is set up. So I can't fully understand why different boards would operate differently that way. I just, we set the tone. I think that's the tone that we've said is acceptable for items under our discretion. We have, delegated that to others for input back to us. And I think the tone and tenor and manner should reflect ours as well, is sort of my overlying opinion on that. I'm not sure we've given Rich useful input. Maybe he wants to let us know if he got the direction from us that he hoped for, and then I'll go into just my quick update.
Thanks, Kelly. Rich, do you want to respond to that before Kelly continues?
No, I'm good. I think it helps me to frame that conversation with the AAB when they have it on the next agenda. So I'm good. I understand where you're all coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kelly, finish yours, please, and then we'll go to Steve.
No, just quickly, I wanted to give a little update on some of the wild and scenic work. So as you may remember, we have 3 subcommittees. We heard a little bit of an update on those committees recently when Wilderness came in for grant. One of those subcommittees is working on the in-stream flow program and, trying to figure out the feasibility of going to the CWCB to request an additional in-stream flow that would capture like the top of the hydrograph and waters that have not been appropriated for environmental purposes. To that end, they want to hire an engineer to look at the studies that have been done on the crystal related to ecological benefits in the river, of the flows, and kind of the feasibility of this. And so they went to the Healthy Rivers Board approved $2,500 to cover a $5,000 cost, and then other partners are chipping in the rest of that to move that, area of the 3 areas of the wild and scenic effort forward. And so I wanted to let you know that, see if you had any questions. And then also just to point out, I think that this work is really important because as the wild and scenic legislation conversation is going on, one of the points of discussion is around the federal water right and whether that water right should and can and will be subordinated to the state of Colorado as part of the designation. This has been done in other areas of the country and in other parts of the state regarding federal water rights. And so I think that it's likely that to gain support for wild and scenic designation, that subordination would have to happen. And this is the type of regime that would allow that water to be protected in a way that the feds would say, okay, you guys can do it that way instead of creating a federal water right. Any questions on that?
Thank you for that. I don't see any questions. Can I thank you for downloading that? Steve.
Yeah, on August 22nd is a really busy date. That's the day CCI Mountain District is meeting in Chaffee County at their county fairgrounds, and it's also the day that Clear is holding a thing at the Door Hosier Center called Energizing Climate Solutions, held from 8 to 5 on August 22nd. I would love to be at both of those events, but I think that we should plan on having a representation at both of the meetings, and I was planning as a CCI member to go to the Mountain District meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that we do have good representation at the event at the Aspen Institute also.
I'm planning on going to the Colorado Water Congress summer conference that day, Steve.
Uh-huh. So it's even busier than just 2 events.
Yeah.
I'm planning to go to the Clear event. I know anybody can go. I think it's a $50 fee to enter. We've been invited to sponsor it, and I'd like just to ask the board if we would consider coming in as a sponsor at the entry level, which I think is fairly modest. Michael Port would have the information on that. But I intend to attend that event, as do I think people from CORE and other climate wonks in the community. So I think we'll be well represented. It's just a question of whether we'd like to contribute to the sponsorship of it, and I would support doing that if we have more info.
I would support giving some money to it too. I noticed that our name wasn't on the list of supporters, but it would be appropriate for us to be there.
I think it's interesting that Claire's having an event in Aspen.
The Door Hosier Center, yeah.
Isn't Claire a Garfield County organization?
They're
Carbondale.
Full valley. They're all around the valley, though. Okay, I just wanted to say thank you for that, Steve. I just wanted to point out that CDOT, in response to comments about Shale Bluffs, actually came up and swept the uphill lane on Friday, and they did a nice job. They swept it clean. The bins haven't been cleaned out, but that's a bigger project, and hopefully they'll come back for that. But their machine broke, and they didn't sweep the downhill lane. So if you're driving down valley, you'll notice the down valley lane has a lot more stuff in it than the uphill lane. But progress has been made, and I just want to express my gratitude to CDOT for being responsive. Okay, I think with that, if that's it for open discussion.
Staff has a couple items for open discussion.
The peanut gallery,
Yeah.
right. Not John, but.
So I think maybe we'll start off with, we wanted to make the board aware of a project that we're going to need to be undertaking at the jail. I think, Rich, you're going to kick this one off, and Alex is here with.
Great, come on up, Alex.
Are you gonna say?
Yeah, we'd be happy to. I see Alex is entering from the peanut gallery, so that's good to see. Thank you.
Get that one of these days.
Yeah, commissioners, we wanted to come to you ahead of a supplemental request that is that we were going to bring in September to advance some work in anticipation of that. Over the past couple of years, Jody, when she's with facilities, was working with Alex and their staff on sewer backup issues in the jail that have been persistent. And we have spent a lot of time and money trying to figure out what's going on under there. We've had them TV'd. And come to find out, we do have a lot of rusted pipes that are in there. They're old cast iron pipes. This year, we put some money in the budget, went in and repaired some of those pipes, but have now under further, well, and then it backed up again. So we knew we didn't get the right one. So under further review, investigation, we found about a 60-foot section that's actually under the concrete in the ground. It's got a belly in it. And they really think now that they have found the issue. We have talked about doing some pipelining, or called slip lining, where you go in and you just slip in the pipe. That option has been discounted now, and really the only solution is to go in and fix this, since it's got the belly in it. And then I'll let Alex talk a little bit more about it, but the overall cost is around $27,000 to go in and do that. But we've overspent one of the line items in the investigative side of trying to figure out what's going on here. So the total request is going to be around $61,000 to you all. But given the health concerns and continued issues that we've been having there, we know that it's a must do. We just wanted your approval ahead of time, and then you'll see in more detail a supplemental that Jody will be bringing to you this September. But Alex, I'd certainly let you speak to it as well.
No, Rich, I think you did a great job. And as you said, there are some persistent sewage issues in the jail that are continuing to cause health concerns for both the inmates and staff. And we just want to make sure we're taking care of that. Luckily, from an operational standpoint, this is not within the secure section of the jail itself, so we don't have to disrupt secure operations and work around that schedule. We can do this outside in the lobby area and just make some changes to our intake procedures.
Sleeving sewer lines is not an uncommon practice. Mm-hmm. Did we have a second opinion on that? Because tearing up concrete is pretty significant.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the process was. Rich, maybe you can speak to that, but I know that the specific issue is an actual dip and a bow in the line, right. So the water's not able to flow appropriately.
Just follow the bow.
So you can't
level that out
without digging it
up. They're going to dig up about 60 feet.
They have to dig up the whole thing just for a dip?
This is jackhammers.
Yep.
All right, I'm not going to get into details because
it's in the lobby section.
I won't get into fencing.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Patty. That was one of the things we really did look at, because we knew there's ways of getting this fixed by slip lining. That just wasn't going to be one of the options.
And you got to figure out how to get the slip through the dip.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you.
So they're coming back, so we don't need to make any thumbs up or thumbs down today. We're just being alerted that this is an issue. Is that right? Do you need anything from us?
It's kind of an informed consent. You have an opportunity to pull us back at this point, but we need to move forward. Our feeling is to get the sewer issues fixed.
It sounds like a bathroom emergency.
Well, in this case, you know what is not running downhill.
Right.
He's stuck in the dip.
I think that's enough about that. Thumbs up? Do we have thumbs up?
Oh, heck yeah, we got to fix it.
Fine.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, thanks, Alex. Thanks for coming in. You always bring such interesting topics.
One of these days.
The other item that we just wanted to spend a few minutes updating the board on is Levi attended the legislative issues session with CCI, and we had actually ended up submitting two RET as well as a sustainable aviation fuel item, and just thought we'd debrief real quick how those went.
Right, so just really quickly, we did submit two legislative issue forms for the CCIA membership to consider. And we had the floor for a few minutes just on Friday to discuss these. And so I just did a super high level overview of both. Obviously, they've heard the RET discussion point from us in the past, but CCI was really open to that topic. I think they see it as a matter of local voters having input over local issues, and I think we were really all banging the same drum of the housing crisis and constant real estate real estate transactions contributing and compounding the livability and our need to diversify revenue sources. So that was really well received. A lot of good comment from other counties that were in support of that, and no opposition was raised, so that was really positive.
That's great.
Excuse
Was
me, where
everybody
were-
there?
I was gonna say, were you there? Where were you?
He was on the phone.
I was on Zoom.
Right. I was listening to that, and I thought what was wonderful is after you gave your presentation on the RET, so many other counties came on and thanked Pitkin County for working on this.
Persistence?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
And
and
were
so-
the Eastern Plains counties there?
There were some Eastern Plains counties there, and obviously maybe this isn't the only point where people will raise grievances or argue or say why we shouldn't do it, but I think the permissive nature and the local control nature speaks to a lot of people, even if they don't personally want the opportunity to have taxes in their own counties.
Good job, Levi.
It was
I
great.
know.
I was really inspired coming out of that. And I think it works really well with the discussions we're having in CCAT about diversifying revenue sources and counties' ability to raise funds based on their individual needs. So I thought it was pretty well aligned, so that was great.
Wow, thank you.
Sure. The second topic was the sustainable aviation fuel. And so we talked about what John had mentioned maybe 3 weeks ago about the Illinois program of offering tax credits either per gallon or for refineries or whatever it may be.
So theirs is a $1.50 tax credit on the consumption. We switched ours to production. So a tax credit for production of SAF to encourage local production.
Local meaning how far away? Does
In
that-
the state.
In the state,
yeah.
local, okay.
That'd be a tax credit that apply anywhere in the state.
So again, just a high-level overview that we were able to talk about last Friday, and I think Greg, if you were still on for that part of the discussion, it was
Might have dropped by
I
then.
think it was later in the meeting, but surprisingly, this got a lot of support also. So we've already been talking with Eagle County and some other areas about feasibility and about options, and Routt County chimed in and said they were really interested in getting on board. Some other counties were looking at beetle kill to generate sustainable aviation fuel, as well as agricultural waste that otherwise doesn't serve any purpose. And similarly, I was pretty excited that we didn't have anybody raising any concerns about that at all. I'm sure that's not the
You could imagine it being a rural industry that could help supplant, fossil fuel industry work. So
Sure. I think a lot
that's
of-
gratifying to hear that.
What kind of agricultural waste isn't used for anything else?
I think they were talking about things like corn
Corn.
stalks after harvest, or other things that might otherwise be piled and create methane as they decompose. I'm not the expert here, so
Okay.
I can't answer that very
So
well.
the
Silage?
grant, yeah,
Compost?
silage, compost, those, the grant that we're seeking through DOLA with some of our neighboring counties is to look at the feasibility and how much of that type of feedstock and where it would come from
Is
and
there
what the
enough?
economic viability is. So because we don't know the answers to those questions, as well as some of the emerging technologies around municipal waste streams and such, and maybe those are more viable, but we need a more comprehensive and
I mean, I just don't, we've never operated with any waste agriculturally, ever. It all goes back into the soil or turned into silage, what the cattle eat, or, So it's an interesting expression, agricultural waste that can't be used for anything else. So I'd be interested to hear more about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure all operations are closed loop systems like you
That's
might
probably
have.
true.
Yeah.
And this discussion will be helpful in moving the resolution that was passed by NACO through Congress, hopefully to do a rulemaking change to the federal code rather than wait for reauthorization of the FAA bill in 5 years.
There was one other conversation I listed into very briefly, was just about electric vehicle. How do you tax electric vehicles for, fuel usage fees that, what do you call a gas tax? How do you replace that? And it was an interesting conversation. It was brought forth by a Eastern Slope or a Plains commissioner, and I was looking at that. He doesn't have any major highways, very few roads, very few people in his county, but he wanted to get, and my guess he probably has very few EVs, but he wants to make sure they get taxed. And the thing is, there's a nationwide movement on how do we fairly start taxing EVs, because if they're
For
going to
road
replace gasoline-powered cars at the rate that we're projecting, we're going to need road taxes. And so there's a huge progressive, movement progressing about this.
And the HUTF funds, for example, are, distributed as a result of those gas taxes. So for those smaller counties, that's
makes a big difference.
Significant revenue source for road maintenance and such. And
so that's why he
there
was
is,
interested.
yeah. And so it is a conversation that the state is going to need to address, and that all counties are going to have a significant interest, as well as municipalities in the state addressing, because the electric vehicles don't pay that tax. It is a significant form of revenue, and they happen to be a little heavier as well.
They are heavier,
So
they wear the roads out.
Did you see that Garfield passed the EV readiness thing, bill, whatever, yesterday, today? I saw it in the paper.
Didn't.
So
Well, I don't know if the commissioners
just
passed
two
it.
other things. The August 22nd, Mountain District in Chaffee for the CCI meeting that Steve mentioned. To further compound that, I think that's the CAST retreat in Durango, the 22nd and the 23rd.
No, I think it's the 28th.
Is it the 28th? Do I have the wrong dates?
I think the Water Congress is the 22nd, and CAST is the 29th and 30th. I better make sure.
I'll double check.
I will too. I'll
might
check right now
remember.
while you're talking.
And then I think for next steps, if the board's okay, I would like to submit just the idea of the SAF legislative proposal to CC4CA.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I think
you're
that's something
right.
they'd be
I'm
pretty
wrong.
interested in supporting. We could have that discussion as early as possible with the legislative team over there.
Comments, questions, suggestions? I don't know enough about what to say.
No, I think I think it should go forward with whatever possible support systems we can find.
Even if it's just a concept or just to mention that we submitted it to CCI,
Yeah.
just to keep that conversation going in as many avenues as we can.
Did CC4CA?
Oh, sorry, CC4CA.
Get your CC4AYs.
I'm out of acronyms. There's no more brain matter left.
So you're right, Levi, my calendar's wrong. So I wonder if I should go to the water conference and you should go to Durango, or.
I'm happy to go to Durango or to Chaffee or wherever I can be.
You're
Durango
talking
is-
end of
Durango
August
is
right now.
which
Let's,
conference? Which
we'll
one?
let you guys do that
CAST?
offline.
Okay.
The 22nd is CAST, and then it's also the Water Congress.
Kelly, did you have another open discussion? I see Steve's hands up also.
No, I just wanted to request to set up a meeting with Rep. Kyle Brown, who was the sponsor of last year's aviation-related bill that we weighed in on a little bit. I think he's a really smart, thoughtful person who has a PhD in some science or engineering, and could be a really good ally on this. I do think we should have our ducks in a clearer row before scheduling time, before like actually meeting with him, but perhaps getting scheduling going will motivate that.
I've still got his aide's information, so I'm happy to reach out to that aide and maybe
Who's
just
Where is he at?
front range.
He's down on the Front Range. I do think
District
if-
12.
at this level, it might be better like for me to reach out to him as trying to sort of flag this as something for interest for next session.
And I would note,
House of
just for the
Reps.
board, I think we expected that the SAF issue would probably take a few tries to gain traction. And we need to do some more work on this to really dial in what specifically would need to be amended in terms of statute and what taxes we'd actually be seeking a credit on. We put this together fairly quickly after our last meeting, so we have some work to do to get into more detail here.
Can you just clarify, is there legitimate interest in trying to have this go through this next session? Because the fall is really the time to figure out those priorities for legislators.
I would turn to Levi. I don't know.
Being in the conversations I've been in, there's been a lot of Western Slope interest in continuing the conversation. So
I think we should.
I wouldn't want to say no to that.
The other thing too is that besides the discussion about the tax on sustainable aviation fuel, is the refinery part of it for a lot of counties that are cutting back on coal production. This is a great opportunity for employment, just like we did with Northwest Cog when they shut down the Henderson mine. They retrained those miners in how to do solar installation, solar maintenance, etc. So it was a great way to create more job opportunities for those that might be unemployed. In other words, this is a great way to bring the miners up into the daylight. It provides great opportunities for those counties that are looking for that might not be supportive of climate action, but we would be supportive of job generation for those who might be unemployed.
Yeah, very good. Steve, are you on this topic, or do you have something else?
Well, yeah, on this topic, there's a huge amount of diesel that is burned hauling aviation fuel around the state, whether it's Jet A or SAF. And if this could somehow be tied into it, it seems like to me that hauling the aviation fuel, say from the big refinery in Commerce City to the West Slope, should be something done by train, and then have a couple locations where the local airports could then access the fuel of whatever type of aviation fuel. We could save a huge amount of diesel fuel in the process, and that diesel should be part of the whole equation of the carbon footprint from the aviation fuel. So I don't know if that could be worked into this study we're about to undertake, but I think it should be.
Thanks, Steve. You know, well, on that topic, the electric semi-trucks are really a thing now, and you could possibly have an electric truck haul that as well, and that's worth contemplating.
Well, the bigger issue is there's no sustainable aviation fuel being produced in Colorado, right? It's being shipped quite a ways.
From Los Angeles is the closest plant, so that's where they do the trade sort of scenarios up at this point. When they talk about sustainable aviation fuel, it's being produced and burned elsewhere, but we get a credit for it. But that's an interesting comment. Thank you. Okay. Are we ready to move on? Is there more? Levi, you good? Thank you for coming in. Thanks for that. Thanks for your work on the CCI. They seem to like you. They responded positively.
I know. I'm really impressed.
That was great.
Are you sure about that?
That's funny. They were never as nice to us.
So
maybe that's it. I don't want to pick on staff.
And that's all we had for open discussion.
Patty,
do we need to take a vote to go back into exec?
I'm gonna.
Or are we still in? Do we need a 5-minute break?
Yes.
No. Well, we're already a half an hour behind, and we have about 3 hours of discussion.
You can start without me then. I gotta talk to Levi for 20 seconds.
They've got to figure out their plan.
That's a month from now.
I know, but we have.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to make a motion to re-adjourn as in executive session for the purposes of
ASC Pitkin County Airport ballot measure procedure and related potential federal aviation administrative regulations, and grant assurance enforcement discussion with counsel for the purpose of receiving legal advice pursuant to CRS 24.64024B. North Thompson Creek Road discussion with counsel for the purpose of receiving legal advice pursuant to CRS 24.64024B. and Pitkin County Attorney Office check-in, Richard Neely, interim county attorney, personnel discussion pursuant to CRS 246402-4F.
I have a question. Can we add a discussion about the item on our agenda tomorrow, which is the ballot question related to affordable housing?
Yes, if you would like.
I would just like some clarification as to how we're going to proceed with legal
If
counsel.
you're looking for a procedural question on the ballot question for, and what, can I see the agenda item for tomorrow?
For tomorrow?
Sure.
It's that one that I think that's the one.
So the motion would be amended to include a procedural discussion relating to approval of a ballot title submitted for November 5, 2024 general election, authorizing an annual ad valorem property tax mill levy imposed at a rate of 1.5 mils for not more than 40 years for the purpose of funding affordable and obtainable housing and related support programs. That would similarly be pursuant to CRS 246402-4B for the purpose of receiving legal advice from counsel.
I'll make a motion to go back into executive session for the purposes as just stated.
And Kelly, do you want to second that? Did you hear that? You're still here. I guess I could second it. Okay, Kelly seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And could we start with the North Thompson Creek, since I think that'll be quicker? Is that
Sure.
okay? Is
That will
okay,
be
Greg?
quicker. It's a couple minute discussion. So tomorrow's agenda.
Wait, we need
oh,
to-
sorry.
we need
We're
to
waiting
get
for
off of
Francie.
grassroots.
Oh, yeah, that's
We're on
right.
grassroots,
That's
and,
right. Thank you.
Francine.
Dave,
get
why
back.
don't we
keeping
take
track
5
of me.
minutes and let
Okay, we're going
folks,
to take our 5.
And,
shut down.
and the board needs to come back in under that, another link, right?
Yeah, I'll.